Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer, where we are tackling a truly universal struggle. We're talking about dealing with a chaotic, completely unruly mind. Look, if you've ever felt like your own thoughts are somehow working against you, I promise you are absolutely not alone. In our source material today, the author of 12 Steps to a Good Life points out a pretty wild realization. He notes that our own thoughts actually cause most of our misery. We carry our minds around with us everywhere, almost like these heavy, overpacked toolboxes, and when we leave them completely undisciplined, our thoughts just create immense suffering and stress. But listen, here is the really good news. We can master this. It's totally possible. And today we're going to break down exactly how to do that, how to move away from those harmful mental habits and step into active mental control.
So, I want to kick things off by asking you a really direct question. Have you ever tried not to think about something? You know what I mean, right? Maybe it was some incredibly embarrassing mistake you made years ago, or a massive worry about a future event, or just a painful memory. What usually happens when you forcefully try to push that thought right out of your head? Well, I bet I can guess. Let's actually do a quick, real-time mental experiment right now. Ready? Do not think of a pink bunny. Whatever you do right now, keep the image of a fluffy pink bunny completely out of your mind. Okay, you totally failed, didn't you? You just saw it. And this brilliantly illustrates what psychologists actually call the ironic processes theory. Our source material points out that the harder you try to suppress or avoid a thought, the stronger it seems to get. It's like a weird trap. When you try not to think of something, you literally end up thinking about it way more. That is just fundamentally how the human mind is wired to work. Now consider this staggering number, 85%. The author of our source text describes taking this whole battery of psychological tests while he was trying to get his life together. And one of these specific tests measured his degree of self-deception. So when the results came back, the counselors sat down and told the author he scored an 85%. Now, the author initially thought, oh, hey, great, that's a B. But the counselor quickly corrected him. No, it meant he was lying to himself 85% of the time. That's wild, right? Our unmanaged minds are constantly filtering thoughts and producing these cognitive distortions that completely separate us from reality. We lie to ourselves constantly. So that brings us to part one, the suppression trap, an unhealthy habit. Because our minds are constantly throwing these intrusive thoughts at us, we obviously have to deal with them somehow, right? But our default coping mechanism is usually a complete trap. It's called thought suppression. This is the unhealthy, deeply automatic habit of trying to avoid, numb out, or run away from a distressing thought. It's that feeling when you just don't want to think about something, so you desperately grab at any distraction you can find. The author notes that one of the most common ways people suppress painful thoughts is through compulsions. Think alcohol, drugs, food, gambling, endless screen time, or even overworking. Now, sure, these behaviors might offer you a tiny bit of short-term relief, but they completely prevent any long-term healing. You're just numbing the pain, but the thought? Oh, it is still right there, waiting for you. To really anchor just how dangerous the suppression is, the source text shares this incredibly powerful quote from M. Scott Peck. It says, "Emotional sickness is avoiding reality at any cost. Emotional health is facing reality at any cost." Man, that hits hard. Thought suppression is basically the ultimate avoidance of reality. By running away from our own internal mental events, we're just avoiding the reality of our own minds, which only leads us down a path of deeper emotional sickness. We have to be willing to actually face these thoughts. So we really need to dismantle this total myth that pushing bad thoughts away works, because it doesn't. On one side, we have thought suppression, which we just established is automatic, it's unhealthy, and it's totally avoidant. But on the other side, we have a critical psychological reality, and it's called thought stopping. Now, thought stopping is a healthy, active, and highly deliberate process. Instead of just running away, you are stepping in. You are deliberately interrupting that negative thought pattern and consciously replacing it with a productive one. It's a total paradigm shift. All right, let's get into part two, active thought stopping, and the radar method. So, now that we know suppression is a trap, how do we actually pull off active thought stopping? Let's break the mechanics down into 3 super clear steps. First up, you have to become aware of the negative or distressing thought. Now, this actually takes courage because you are actively choosing to step off of autopilot. Second, you use a trigger to interrupt it. And third, you intentionally replace that thought with something either positive or neutral. Basically, you accept that the thought happened, you realize it's completely unhelpful, and you swap it out. Let's really zoom in on that second step for a second, because it is absolutely vital to the whole process. When you catch a negative thought looping in your head, You need a trigger. The source text highly recommends using a sudden physical trigger. We're talking about loudly snapping your fingers or firmly saying a word out loud like stop or cancel. The whole idea here is to create a sudden physical break in that automatic thought process. You are literally jarring your brain out of its destructive little loop so that you can reach out and grab the steering wheel back. To help bring some incredible awareness and real purpose to this whole process in real time, the author introduces this really powerful framework called RADAR. RADAR is just an acronym, and it stands for Reflect, Describe, and Respond. It is essentially a tool that creates breathing room. It creates space between what you think and what you do, moving you away from just reacting on autopilot to actually responding intelligently. Okay, so the very first step in the framework is the R, reflect. When the mental chaos hits, you just pause. You observe your thoughts without trying to frantically control or change them right off the bat. Ask yourself, what are you actually thinking right now? Are you endlessly replaying some past conversation? Are you harshly judging yourself? Now, the absolute key here is doing this without judgment. Do not berate yourself and think, oh, I shouldn't be thinking like that. Because guess what? You already are. Just simply acknowledge the mental chaos. You can't change your response to a thought if you refuse to even acknowledge it exists. Next up is the D, describe. Once you've taken that pause, clearly articulate the thought using really neutral, specific language. Don't defend the thought. Don't justify it. For example, literally say to yourself, I am thinking that I failed, or I am having the thought that this person is against me. Why do we do this? Well, because by formally naming the thought, you create distance from it. It proves to your brain that your thoughts are just random mental events happening to you. They are not absolute reality. They are just representations, and therefore they can be totally questioned. And finally, we reach the last R, respond. This is exactly where your active thought-stopping triggers come into play. You ask yourself, okay, is this thought actually helpful? Is it based in hard fact? And if the answer is no, you consciously choose to replace it. This is the exact moment where you might physically snap your fingers, say stop out loud, and actively replace that toxic thought with a productive one. You are no longer just being dragged around by the current of your thoughts. You are actively steering your mind with pure intention.
So, we have explored the dangerous trap of thought suppression, and we've uncovered the incredible power of active thought stopping. I want to leave you with a real challenge to take with you today. Will you use a physical trigger to stop your very next negative thought? Seriously, the very next time your mind starts spinning up an unhelpful narrative, I challenge you to physically snap your fingers, run through that RADAR framework, and take your mind back. You've got this.